Parashas Shelach. The title of the article is The Gear of Everything. This week's Parsha, we're going to show how we're coming into the final turn of completion on the Torah. We're about in the middle of the book of Bamidbar, and we're going to eventually go into the book of Devarim and finish with the holidays and end the Torah cycle. By now, we have enough ground covered that we should understand where we are in the Torah universe. Every year we get here. And I think it's apropos that by Shelach, the spies, Tisha B'Av, where did it go wrong? We should have enough matter here to ascertain where to go right. Thus the title of the article is The Gear of Everything. By that token, I'm suggesting we have enough dots connected that we can begin to find the gear from here on out. In retrospect, it was all about missing or irrelevant Gerim. Now, the Torah is the book of life. We can find anything in any parsha. If you want to find the Torah of stamp collecting from the parshiot from the beginning until now, you can, in theory. Our goal is a certain type of goal. King David in Psalms writes with a certain type of goal. Right? There's many flavors of a lot of things. If you're interested in the laws of how to tie your shoes, you can find shoes in every parsha if you look deep enough. For our interests, we have enough gear material. Just by learning the beginning of the Torah, innocently looking gear here, gear there, this law, that law, that we can philosophically introduce the path of harmony between Jews and Gerim, and that's where we want to go. That the thread we've taken this year, now next year might be different. Let's say next year we want to find the Noahide Shabbos in every parsha. We want to find the Noahide in ancient times rejecting idolatry. The possibilities are endless. We want to see how the gear is basically a part of everything. And by right now, this is the keystone parsha to show such a concept. Thus, in the parsha, we're going to go over the following points. Gear awareness, lack of gear awareness. Right? What does it mean to be aware of the gear and changing our perception both of Torah and in the reality we live in? Right, both an awareness and the lack of, and the detriment of the lack of. How Torah and life really can and should and are one. The idea of the entire Torah and the dots that we can connect from week to week. What does it mean to have a Torah in an exalted state and in a diminished state? And what is the fundamental problem? What are we highlighting in this parsha that we're suggesting is the problem? That and more this week's class. Point number 1. The Torah build-up. Right? Everybody knows we begin with Bereshis, go through to Shemos, onwards to Vayikra, into Bamidbar, and finish with Devarim. Right? That's beyond elementary. But what is it in a certain context? In Genesis, Bereshis, we're creating the prototype of creation, the fractals of creation, Jew, Ger. Right? A very kind of unformed universe. Abraham, is he a Jew? Is he a Ger? Shem, is he a Jew? Is he a Ger? The tribes, were they Jews or Gerim? Abraham's converts, were they Jews or Gerim? And it's still formulating. We don't really know. We're starting to learn Genesis. We don't know. We don't know enough to know. Go onwards into the book of Exodus, Shemos. Now we're getting, Jews. Are they Jews? Are they strangers in Egypt? And they're bringing out the non-Jew. Did they convert at Sinai? Were they Gerim? Were they Erev? Are they evil? Are they good non-Jews, bad non-Jews? Do we have relations with them in any way? Do we like them? Are they participating in anything? Are they left out of anything? Vayikra, which is called Torah's Kohanim, the book of the Kohen, of the priest, the heart of the Torah. Between the random sacrificial laws, the essential laws such as love your neighbor as yourself, when the ger is destitute, reaping the leftovers of your field. This is the core of religious Judaism. You're in the land, you have land, you have produce, you're in society, you have workers, you have friends, you have family, you have everything you need in life. And a bit of a technical law situation. But if you look even more delicately, you'll see it's a bit poetic. Right next to, the don't take interest from your neighbor, you'll have love your neighbors yourself. So it's very balanced, and with the right eyesight of looking at it, it can be a very nice book. I know it's very hard for a lot of people to get into Vayikra, but if you find the humanity of it, that's the task. How do you find the humanity of sacrifices and blood and guts and just charging interest? But that's the klippa, that's the shell. If you get into the fruit, Vayikra is a beautiful parsha. But that's the challenge. How do you do it? Most don't. Right? We were very good up until the Exodus. I was hanging in there. I was thinking about Passover. I would like to go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That was more exciting to me. And then, Vayikra opens and, hey, bring the offerings and cut up a bunch of cows, and you just lost me. And by the time we get into the middle of love your neighbors yourself, you're basing the entire book. How many weeks is it? Like 11 weeks, 12 weeks, however many parshas it is, on one sentence, one pasuk, love your neighbors yourself. That's a famous one everyone loves. But other than that, we know it's a major thing. It's the whole Torah on one foot, says Rabbi Akiva and Hillel, the elder. But I'm going to wait the whole book to get one verse, and the rest of it I don't relate to. But we feel something's there. But it's just too hard to crack. We don't have a temple. We don't have a tabernacle. We don't have a priesthood functioning. We don't have saras. We don't have all the things that they're talking about. By the time we get to Bamidbar, take a census, I don't even know what a census is. I don't even know why we would have one. See, the prerequisite spirituality was left back in Genesis. And it lingered a bit in Exodus, but by Vayikra we lost it. And the Torah learning is about momentum. But even in Bamidbar, to get, what is the census? You got to really look and dig. The Gershonites, and the Kohats, and all the Levite families. Names of people we don't even know. How do you get into that? Then we venture onwards, building the altar. Talking about the Nazarite, the Sota. Things that either it's interesting because it's so foreign, it's not interesting because it's so foreign. The Talmudists love it. They say, hey, we learned Sota in Yeshiva last week, and Nazir is a great Masechta. But that's where the problem begins. Now we're saying in the book of Bamidbar is very halacha, law, but not in how to tie your shoestrings. Again, Nazir, Sota, all the really interesting tractates are in there. So it already becomes a legalistic standpoint. But again, flavored with interesting episodes. The Ark is in there. Jethro comes back. A lot of dramatic affairs. And then we reach Parashas Shelach. It all comes to a head. Out of nowhere, everything was basically fine. We had some complaints along the way. And we had the golden calf episode. But we fixed that. It's not a problem. We don't really know how we fixed it, but that's the problem really of that. We brush it off. That was already weeks ago, months ago. Who's talking about the golden calf anymore? That was just the Erev Rav. And they're just, who cares about the Erev Rav? But now we're going to send the spies. And we'll say, that's Moses' fault. Why would he want to send? He wanted to bring the Erev Rav. He wanted to send the spies. It's a love-hate relationship with Moses. But for whatever it's worth, the spies were sent. Evil reports were spoken. The land was abused. And the 9th of Av was dictated as the eternal, or not eternal, but nearly eternal punishment to Israel. And we're here, left with the in shambles, trying to understand what is going on. And we've built up to this. And everyone knows it's a build-up. Because now, look where we're going from here. Korach, that's already the whole, it's exciting. Chukas, the paraduma, the red heifer. Parashas Balak. Very interesting. With Bilam, the blessings, Mashiach, shooting stars. Pinchas, the covenant of peace, messianic flavor. We end it with Matos Masai. Bilam is dead. I mean, it's an exciting end of the Torah. So we at least get the end of the Torah, but again, are we getting a full gist of where the Torah ends? And then we go into Devarim, and hope whatever we have, we have. Whatever you sowed for those 4 books, now you're reaping the fruit. A lot of Parsha material gets very rich in Devarim. The Zohar is fantastic. Rabbi Nachman is very Devarim Zohar-ish. Coming into the holidays, fear God, love God, Shema, going in the land. Very interesting. But this is the keystone right here. What was and where will be is very much how you deal with Shelach. It's like Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. It's just very perfectly placed. And it's not an accident that Tisha B'Av and its rectification, thus the birth of Mashiach, is right before us. The dots are there. Question is, how did you choose, or how did you find yourself connecting those dots? What picture did you accomplish in terms of revelation? So for our cycle that we're involved in, obviously Noahide lessons, Noahide rabbi, Noahide students, Noahide agendas, if you will. We've had a certain stream of dots connected. For us, what we did, the beginning of Genesis, obviously Shem, Noah, Abraham, Adam. The tribes are very, let's say, the primal Noahide code. Coming into Egypt, we're going to focus on the Ger coming out. Vayikra, all the inclusion aspects of the Ger. Right? When it says Ger, this is where the Ger code comes in. On Yom Kippur, we have the Ger, this, that. Is that the convert? Is it the Ger Toshav? Is it the Ger Tzedek? Which Ger is it? How big is this Ger? Is he really here? Does he matter? A little bit? Not a lot? We come into Bamidbar and we said, wow, the Ger is literally awesome. He's part of the census. He's getting his name. He's part of the job. He's everything. He's with you. He's the 4th house of Israel. He goes back to Shem and Noah. He is right there with you. It's all good. And then we reach Parashas Shelach. We're going to find out what's going on with the Ger. Now let's take a break in the action and come back to reality. Reality is there is no Ger. The Ger is a convert. We are in exile. 99.9 repeating of the world included particularly the Jews, and particularly the rabbis, are not even aware of a pressing Ger Toshav issue. So even though it might be the essential reality, it's not our reality. Right? The Chabad houses are not yet filled with Gerim, Ger Toshav Gerim. Right? Nowadays, when you hear Ger, it's a convert. So our Torah view is, as we'll get into, a bit particular, draconian, outdated. Why? It's exile product. And we know that. Messiah comes with a dynamic emanation Torah from Atzilus. We've been reduced to a legalistic standpoint, which is not bad. It just means we know how to be halachic Jews. If you want to know how to tie your shoes, go ask a rabbi. He'll tell you all about it. As I'm known to tell you, the smaller the matter, the greater the fuss. And they'll do it. If you million views on how to tie your shoes, don't worry about it. But if you want to know how to save the world, how Mashiach comes, what the job is, what's our task, why we were created, that's not our generation. Unless you want people making up stories. Then we're filled with that too. But there is a good side to the story. Our lives have never been richer. And you'll say, but come on, Obama's the president, the world's corrupt, corporations are taking over, McDonald's sells fake meat, right? It's a horrible, horrible world. And it is. But it always was. King Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. So why is our world so great? And the answer is, our world is great because we're living a reality, and don't forget, God doesn't leave the picture. God may be hidden and concealed, hard to find, hard to get a hold of. We've been out in the desert wandering for 2,000 years. Religions are proving false. We're stuck. There is no God for most of the world, at least in a true, clear lens. So why, again, is the world awesome? One reason, whether it's revealed potential or just in potential, you have a world of Jews. Let's say there are 15 million Jews. Forget denomination, whatever. They're Jews by their own volition and mission. And the world, let's say, is X percentage ger / potential ger. Questioning idolatry. Interested in leaving the church behind, etc., etc. You have relationships forged around the globe, in between pockets of racism and poverty and even legalized slavery, all the things that we disdain in our populations and society. You have little tiny pieces of life coming together that are creating pockets of divinity that allow us to understand real life. 70 years ago, growing up in Ohio as a Jew, you're going to be told you do not play with the non-Jews. That's how it was. So life is contrived. It was not really full life. Where I grew up, say in the mid-90s, even not knowing or realizing what a Jew was. And the non-Jews that I grew up with, not really knowing what a non-Jew is. Even if we say that you're the non-Jew and I'm the Jew, we don't really know what that means. It just means you're different than I am. But what we did, and it's called Mesiach Lefi Tumo, in a purely true way, because we didn't know enough to make it not true. We created revelations of Torah and divinity. Jews and Gerim working together incognito, even in covert ways, by God's plan and design. So now the Jew, let's say, has infiltrated the Esav Yishmael circles of reality. And that clash produces a spark of revelation. And the non-Jew is infiltrating Jewish circles, which is creating a spark from the clash. The internet lends itself to this knowledge of clashing cultures. All of a sudden, sharing knowledge becomes a way of our society. You have technology that allows for a Jew in Sfat to have a Torah discussion over the internet with non-Jews ranging from the Philippines, Australia, Texas, and theoretically Antarctica. Never happened, but I suppose it's possible, right? Those connections are supernatural. Not only because of the demographic, but the time zones, allowing for one to be, let's say, at night, the other in day. Lifestyles merging over the internet cyberwaves. And it's allowing the spiritual connections, whatever above world you want to call it, whatever it is not physical. Yet we're entering each other's lives. This is happening either intentionally or unintentionally. The two worlds are colliding in this world of technology. And that creates the vessels of knowledge and awareness. I now know that non-Jews are not evil. They're not looking to proselytize me to Christianity. They're not going to steal my stuff, right? Blah, blah, blah. Now, is there anti-Semitism? Yes. Are there Jews that are not Beseder? Yes. The world still is evil. It still needs a great repair. But there are possibilities of the repair already in motion and are happening. Once those relationships are in motion, we can derive the mochin, the mentality of them. What does it do when a ger is in motion with a God-fearing Jew? Because that's a Torah reality. When the ger comes here, when the ger is in your midst. Well, pre-2005, I never knew of a ger in my midst. And if I did, if it happened, I didn't know it consciously. In 1950, it didn't happen, period. But in 2014, I'm very aware of a ger in my midst. That is a little bubble of a Torah reality. When Rashi says Gerim can partake of the mitzvah of Purim, and a ger comes to your Purim meal, you now are fulfilling the words of Rashi. And this is not a legalistic standpoint. We're saying whatever Rashi said is a reality, and that reality yields a revelation of God by the fact that it's Torah. We can know that reality. Now compare and contrast that reality to it is only Jewish and Goyim stay out. Big difference. Big difference. In fact, that alone can change the world. Once you intermingle in these dynamics, and you see the ger as an authentic biblical character in our day and time as much as the Jew. And by the way, the Jew learns from the ger how it is to be biblical. See, the Jew never realized he always was being a light to nations, at least in demand. He just wasn't with the supply. Now he can reciprocate. And not only does he reciprocate, but he can start being a light not to this non-Jew, but to the world of Gerim, who take refuge under the wings of the Shekhinah. That's a big difference than old Bob came over to watch the game. There's a biblical reality coming down. when those realities are met, we can superimpose the knowledge into the Torah. Right? The ger in your midst. This is no longer some alien, strange ger identify. And that's how we view it. Robotic, right? Like some stranger. He's not. Who is this guy? Get him out of here. But you understand, it's the ger, it's the Noahide. And when they're there, you think about what the questions a Noahide would ask. So the Jews are going to sit around at Purim and talk about how great Sinai was. Sinai was awesome. Wow, being Jewish is the best. Pastor Schmaltz. Wait, where's the herring? And we're going to talk about Tzaddikim and the stories of righteousness and how great the Baal Shem Tov was. And, oh, it's so good to be Jewish. And the non-Jews are going to be saying, what did Jews do on Purim? Let's look it up on the internet. Purim, Jews, get drunk and talk about slaughtering the non-Jews. Interesting. Is there any good to the story? Oh, lots of Goyim converted, not for the sake of true conversion, called it the conversion of Mordechai Esther. That's for the eager scholar. That's already getting technical and law and Talmud, and I'm not interested. Then there's some contempt and some friction. And maybe we can have a light discussion if we meet in line at the grocery store. As I buy my kosher food, you buy your unkosher food, and that's the border that does not dissolve. Now, what happens when the ger comes to that Purim Suda? The Purim meal. He's invited. The Jew recognizes, hey, the Gerim are part of it. Bring him over. The Ger realizes, I want to see what this Purim's about. And the Jews are saying, oh, it's awesome. Sinai and schmaltz and herring. Oh, it was great. Oh, it was so good. Being Jewish is awesome. Don't you know what it's like, Bob? Bob says, no, actually I don't. I'll tell you what I do know. What does it mean when Rashi talked about the 10 laws were given at Marah? That's when you can cut the tension with a knife. What, this come again? What? Oh, you know, certainly, Rabbi. At Marah, see, before Sinai revelation, the Jews were still Noahides because they weren't Jews, and they were given the 7 laws of Noah and 4 other mitzvahs. I was just wondering how you felt about that. And that's when reality sets in. Jew says, don't ever repeat this, but I don't know what Marah is. I don't know that Rashi. I don't know what the 4 laws are. And now that explain those 4 laws, which are paraduma, understand, honoring your parents, statutes, and Shabbat, I don't know what that means because a non-Jew can't keep Shabbos. And what do you mean the Jews were Noahides? And what was Marah? And that's when the circuits explode. And the non-Jews saying, this is what Jews do? Drink schnapps, eat herring, and talk about great it is to be Jews? Don't you realize you're a light to the nations, and you have the whole tradition in your fingertips, and you're supposed to be teaching me? Why am I teaching you? Then that little awkward phase dissipates. And we can start to really, the dust settles, the nuclear bomb fallout goes, we can start growing produce again, and we start to say, the Noahides are asking questions that are very interesting and such that we don't ask. And then, so the pitfall is to say, wow, what a smart non-Jew. Wow, this guy's special. He asks questions I don't even know. Well, don't flatter yourself. He's not so great, and it's not that you don't know. Noahides have a view of Torah. Jews have a view of Torah. It's called Bnei Israel and the people. And this is not a new creation. This happened yesterday, the day before. It happened in Sinai. It happened before Sinai. It'll happen tomorrow. It'll happen next year. The two rub and have friction in a way that they are drawing revelation down simply by shared experience of reality, of a common reality. Once they get over that uneasiness, Ger doesn't have to be a convert. Ger can be a Ger Toshav. The Jew doesn't know what it is to be like to nations. Let me help him out. Now it's brotherly love. Now they're coming into Torah. And the questions start to erupt. Is the Ger rabbi in this verse a convert or Ger Toshav? Well, let me look it up. Wow, look at that. It's a ger toshav. In fact, Onkelos says he's uncircumcised. I guess it can't be a convert. Rabbi, what about this? Rabbi, what about that? Rabbi. Next thing you know, the rabbi has no more dust on his books because he's learning and researching what Onkelos interestingly refers to as ulpan. Anybody that goes to Israel knows that you learn Hebrew by ulpan, intensive study. Hang out with a ger and you will go through ulpan. Rabbi, what does this word mean? Rabbi, what does that word mean? They don't know the Hebrew. They don't know the Torah the same way a Jew does. Vice versa, the Jew doesn't know how to ask the questions and identify humanity and the universal code like the ger does. When those elements come together in a reality shared by both, we say, okay, I guess we understand who you are. I guess we understand who you are. We understand everything different. And we have our own little bubble of our world that we're happy in. The rest of the world might not understand it. They don't have it come around yet. They don't know what they're on about. They think they're talking about the weather. They're not. But the real fireworks come when this like Ghostbusters harnessing the ghost with the crossing laser beams, right? When they bring that Torah life reality into the text of the Torah itself. Maybe, just maybe, Parashas Shelach, for example, when it talks about Bnei Yisrael, that's the Jew, and the people is the ger. And you say, that is preposterous to make a bombastic claim like a strutting peacock like that. But if you have the guts to go through with it, just do it. Try it once. You're not a heretic. And you go, and if you feel like a heretic, who am I to make such a distinction about the children of Israel and the people? And I don't know that. Well, then why did you suggest it? The answer is, it felt right to say it. Did you ever think maybe that means you're right? You'll say, but maybe I made it up, and, well, the answer, be deliberate in judgment, says Pirkei Avos. Did you make it up? Were you being a shyster when it came to your mind? The answer is no. You know when you're being a shyster, you know when you're pressing it, and you know when you're not. Continue, and you'll find God delivers the Torah through Mazal, by divine providence and blessing. By definition, the Torah scroll is bound by mazel. And you'll find out the Arizal stated as such, the children of Israel are Jews and the people are the ger. Give yourself a little bit to God and God will give to you. Right, the famous 4 steps. My intentions were good. I had a deliverance from a shady place. I got punished and I was redeemed. The Zohar ends itself on that lesson, meant from Reuven, and King David personified it to the point the whole Torah is that. When you make such a claim, you know your intentions are good, and you are bringing it from a dodgy place. Why? Because nobody says this. And they'll say, no one says this. But then God will show you someone did say it. It was just had dust so much you didn't know about it. Then you can start to make claims in the Torah that are true. They're half Chiddush, Novelli, but they are proven in our tradition. And you start to look around, and you find out not only is the ger everywhere in Torah, but the ger advocate is littered throughout the tradition. See Rabbi Nachman, Torah 14 in Likutei Moharan, and his advocacy of the ger / ger tzedek, non-Jew. Once we understand the reality code, we find precedent in rabbinic writing, in tradition through thousands of years, that this is not a heretical maverick sect of bringing neo-Christianity into the Torah. Quite the contrary. It's eradicating Christianity that crept into our tradition from our diminished state. This is going back to what is true Torah, what is the real ulpan, What is the intensive study? What is the mitzvah of Purim? What is the ger? What is the tradition? Eliminating opinion from those that don't really merit to have an opinion. Opinion comes from scholarship and proven fact in scholarship. Now, the scholars may have varying opinions, but at least they have the precedent word, scholarship. Where one is knowledgeable, he has an opinion. And there are areas in Torah where some have more or less. The ger have a valid opinion too. They are just as much as this common reality. And that's why they are a part of the Torah. It shouldn't even need to be said, but it does. Because in our reality, the ger is left a long time ago. The temples were destroyed. The shtetls were our livelihood. You're not worrying about making Noahide.com. You're worried about making survival.com. A convert, if he wants to convert, let him convert. One more Jew helps the cause. That was the idea. But now that we're in Israel, one more Jew doesn't register. All the more so a Jewish world, which erroneously people think that's the cause. The cause, as the Lubavitcher Rebbe quotes the Rambam, it's a Ger Toshav world who comes to the full knowledge of God. That's where we're going. And that's where the Torah was written to go. In case you didn't realize, the Torah was written by Gerim. Entirely. As it takes place before, during, and after Sinai. The mission crossing the Jordan into the Promised Land is about making Gerim. In case you forgot, how do you get rid of the 7 nations in the land? Which is the absolute agenda of the Torah on its conclusion. Enter Israel, do the mitzvah, build the temple. Some will say take out an AK-47 and go Columbine on the Goyim. Although you can render that from the text, it's a tremendous chilul Hashem. There's no historical precedent. It's bad learning. It's irresponsible. Why go there? It's like a permitted loophole, same as much as a Noahide father relating with his daughter. It's forbidden by every means necessary. So how do you conquer and eradicate the 7 nations? The Ramban tells you the 7 laws of Noah is how you conquer the land of Israel. Even Amalek becomes conquered and killed through taking on the 7 laws of Noah. Making Gerim is what the Torah is about. Look at Abraham, what did he do? Look at Shem, what did he do? The Zohar says as such, the greatest honor to God is making Gerim. What greater way of making Gerim, living a shared common reality with Jew and Ger, and finding that reality called life in the Torah, which is synonymous with the book. The book is the tree of life. We call it that. It's not the book of how to be a halachic Jew. It's the book of life. And in life, there are halachic Jews. And there are non-Jews who interact with halachic Jews. This is what I was saying. Don't view Bamidbar as the laws of Sota, the laws of the Nazir. Oh, it's a great opportunity, the laws of first fruits. That's an aspect. It's not wrong. Law is not wrong. It's not your enemy. But there's a greater story as well. The Talmudist must understand the flavor as well, the humanity of it. The lack of a necessity to make the whole world Jewish. We only went law because we lost the flavor. The ger left. It became a convert. There was no need for the ger toshav. Not in 2,000 years of exile. But the prophecies, particularly by King David, is that the ger will return. The nations will return. And with that, we then know what that means. The lexicon returns. The upan returns. The land returns. The temple returns. The actual laws concerning Gerim returns. Knowledge of God returns. Awareness of God returns. The providence of God returns. Understanding the mission of the name of Israel is what the Torah is about as a spear tip. And Parashas Shelach is the personification of that spear tip. We view Tisha B'Av as the ultimate not Ger story. A bunch of Jews got together, spoke Lashon Hara, got beat up by God, kicked out, punished with Tisha B'Av, to which we still suffer today, saying, woe is me, I won't speak Lashon Hara on Jews anymore. Just like the law dimension, it's not wrong. But there's more. Yes, speaking Lashon Hara on Jews and the thing and this and that, that's not wrong. That is part of it. But when you understand reality, the Gerim were side by side with Israel from Bereshis Bar Elokim until the final words of the Torah. They were there with you at Sinai. Remember the Erev Rav that Moses pulled out. Well, who do you think they were? Filled with Gerim. Who testified to Israel receiving the Torah? Gerim. What was Israel when they before at Mara? Gerim. Who were they there with to testify? Gerim. Who saw the Exodus and proclaimed God as great? Gerim. Who has the light upon them of the ancients from the Jews? Gerim. Who wanders in the desert causing problems and complaining? For better or for worse, Gerim. Who was the savior of Israel? Jethro the Ger. Love him, hate him, want him, gone, dead, this, that, next, they're there. So a Torah reality where they're not there is not true. It's part of it. I'm sure there were times that two Jews talked and there wasn't a Ger within 100 yards. And maybe one spoke Lashon Hara on the other. But that's not the whole story. Thus, when we relate to the life and reality of the Torah itself, it's a book of Jews and Gerim. Yes, there are probably stock traders and carpenters and mechanics and teachers and stamp collecting. I'm sure one of the Ger was a stamp collector and one of the Jews was a carpenter. You can paint it a million ways infinitely. But just like there are 70 nations can be boiled down Esav Yishmael, we can say the new Adam and Eve is the Jew and the Ger. The new male-female national point of view. Even Kabbalistically. And again, it's not a miyut, it's a riboy. It's not to say this and nothing else. We're saying this too. And it just so happens to be that in our Parsha, the this too brings a great light and illumination. Because the evil speech that was spoken had to do very much with your nation counterpart to the children of Israel, the Jews and the Ger. When we understand the Jew and the Ger is the fractal of that story, we can then understand the psychology and the humanity based on our common reality. I mean, look at any Noahide situation right now. Does the Jew really want him around? Not yet. You know, when they say Gedaliah instead of Gedaliah, right? And instead of Shabbos, it's the Sabbat, all the mispronunciations. And the Jews feel uncomfortable, the Ger feels uncomfortable coming into holiness. It's an odd time. Are you going to make me a Christian? Are you going to convert me to your cult? Are you going to take my money, Rabbi? I mean, it's very, very volatile, the relationships. We don't trust each other. We don't know each other. We've been told don't do it. They've even threatened not to do it. Imagine when the nations were first formed, that was also going on. Israel kept its circles. Here comes the Gerim. And they're going to go conquer the land of Israel. Israel's saying, I don't know about this. I don't know if I can trust these guys. And the Gerim are saying, these guys were trustworthy too. So once the ger is cut out due to consequence and tragedy and corruption in history, the destruction of the first and second temples, ger issues are at least highly ger related to the formulation of world religion based on that demographic. The ger's gone the last 2,000 years. Go be a Christian or Muslim. We're going to be pre-Zionist Jews. It means Talmud in the shtetl, not looking at the light of day, hunched over a book, making Kiddush on Friday night, leave us alone. We just lost the temple on yet another Tisha B'Av. And the non-Jew says, well, you kicked me out anyways. We're going to have hostile anti-Semitic relations. See you in a couple thousand years. You're not interested in being a ger toshav. We're not interested in that. All the more so making converts. And they go side by side like a grumpy old couple not talking for 2,000 years. And it's not for naught. Those experiences will yield the sparks of creation that allow the rectification to come together at the end. Just like God throwing out Jews or the Shekhinah and then coming back in a rebirth of a reunion. But while you're gone, this is very Song of Songs, right? Very Song of Songs. While you're gone, I'm doing X, Y, Z. The rabbi has developed his gullus exile mentality and view of Torah. Law-based, lacking flavor. Redemption is, about a good 1,500 years away, so we're not going to embellish on that too much. We're going to focus on being halachic Jews so we can survive the exile. Ger Torah will be written down and encapsulated, but we're not going to teach that for also about another 1,500 years. So good luck trying to find it. If you do, all the more so. Antoninus with Rebbe, he found it. Queen Elena, Queen of Sheba, they found it. It's able to be found, but good luck. And to the Jew, good luck finding the ger. Have fun with your convert code. Because now that you're plagued with your diminished revelation, just like in the Kabbalistic model, the kingdom or Malchus shrivels to a point. We then teach off of that point. Every ger in the Torah, we say it's a convert. Even if it means, give the ger nevela, so what? I said it wrong. I wasn't paying attention, so what? We're not a hero for anybody. We're trying to fend for ourselves. Rabbi Nachman's Torah 14, only converts. So what? What, you want us hang around churches pulling out future Gerim? That's the attitude. What have they ever done for us? And the ger says, I guess I'll convert, because what are they doing for me? Then you get, insincere converts along with the sincere converts. It's a crazy story. It's like it's a divorce waiting to happen. Only God makes the marriage work in the end. They work out their issues. But the views, the ger is only convert. That creates misinformation. The borders of Israel to expand, the whole world, Jewish. Bad idea. Misinformation. Once all that misinformation goes out, then the klippas get a hold of it and say, let's change the context and connotation. Right? You drink blood on Passover. All these mishigas things people say. Why? Because there's no reason to say anything good. So let's take every mitzvah out of context and make everyone look bad. Rabbis then promote illicit teachings or ill-advised teachings based on the books have dust from sitting on the shelf. Modern Hebrew comes in and we lost biblical Hebrew. Words like lo nachon, they'll say means you're wrong, not true. Doesn't mean that. It means not fully true. Big difference. And when all that baggage comes in, there's a huge barrier. And the sides are not able to penetrate each other's worlds. If that's Judaism, I don't want it. If that's the non-Jew, I don't want it. Then we come into Parashas Shelach. With all this baggage and energy, emotion, turmoil, the Lashon Hara, and on one thread, the Jew is saying to the non-Jew, we don't want to go in the land of Israel with you. And you don't want to go. It's too hard. It's not good. The land's not good. And the non-Jew is saying, wow, the land of Israel is awesome. But we want to go beat up the enemy. The spies found out the enemy is not such a physical thing. 7 laws of no is how you win. And they don't even see the obvious answer right in front of them. Here's your chance to perfect the victory. Make 7 laws of no a Gerim. Conquest is a cinch. No, because these Gerim aren't like those Gerim. It's petty. It's ridiculous. It's like, brothers fighting. Cain, Abel, man, woman. Very male, female. I know what you said. You're wrong. I mean, it's just stupid. The Gerim took it over the head. They had their times with the golden calf episode, blah, blah, blah. So tit for tat. But God drops the brick on and says, that's it. You guys, this is it. It's about Mashiach, the Ger, the Jew, and now we're going to bring Mashiach. You just gave the creation of Mashiach. Thank you very much. You guys are so wrong, so perfectly wrong in your behavior. The Mashiach is that in repair. And Kabbalah is called man ban. You are so draconian and dogmatic and static and set in stone, and the Mashiach is the opposite. It's dynamic. It's fresh. It's innovative. It's life. It's reality. It's love. That's why the Torah says Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av. That Tisha B'Av, that time it was born. It's the opposite to say, oh, Mashiach must come on Tisha B'Av. We have rabbinic writings that Mashiach will only come on Tisha B'Av, so when his clock strikes at 8 p.m. every year in August, I'm waiting for Mashiach to come for the next 24 hours. Otherwise, he won't come. That's, again, draconian and dogmatic view of the universe. Exactly the opposite of what it's about. And it's the mutual learning that allows us to open our minds to read the sources. The source doesn't say he comes only on Tisha B'Av. But you need that Ger Jew together to get the full perspective. What does it mean? Because you don't have a reason to go beyond your 4 feet of ground. To say, maybe it's not that he only comes on Tisha B'Av. But being born is a precedent. King David in Psalms prophecies very clearly. The last 3 generations of time, the nations of the world will erupt and come to Jerusalem, figuratively and literally, making themselves Gerim, finding God, ruining the old ways of religion, inventing the wheel again, so to speak, finding God in their lives in the world. The Ger does come back. It's all part of the divine plan. When he comes back, that onkelos, the Ger word, ulpan, right? We're going to learn the words. That Ger has all those sparks. When he shoved him out into the wilderness, he's coming back with a load of sparks. And the Jews sat learning and learning and learning and learning. And all that light went in. They didn't realize it. Ger, 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 Ger. Every day in the Talmud, there's something about Ger. But it just is like the word et, aleph taf. It's a non-word. It's like a direct object grammar word, right? Et. Or in Kamash Malan in the Talmud, we hear from the word ka, they say means nothing. The word ger means nothing, right? Bob and Joe and the ger went into da-da-da-da. The ger doesn't exist. But it did. Subconsciously, you entered it for thousands of years. And the gerim are coming back. Rabbi, can we keep Shabbos? The ger can. Wow. And then it comes back. Rabbi, are we in the paraduma, red heifer? The ger can. That's interesting. Then you start getting all this ger, and the lexicon grows, the vernacular grows, the Hebrew grows, the episodes in Torah start to grow. What was Mara? Who was Seth? Who was Jethro? Who was Naaman? Who was Aravna? Then you start asking yourself, who was Elisha? Who was Elijah? Who was David? Who was Moses? Then you go ger again. Who was Moses' mother? Who was David's mother? Who was Miriam? Who was Shiphrah? Who was Puah? Who was Seth? Who was Noah? Who was Adam? Who was Shem? Who was Japhet? What is the Onkelos Ger code translation of the story of Shem, Japhet, and Ham? Who was Canaan? What does Canaan mean? Where's the land of Israel? What are the borders? Where's the temple? All of a sudden, ger meets Jew. There's an explosion. It's called Torah becomes alive. Life and reality become real. And all of a sudden, I'm a Jew. And you're a ger. And we're both biblical. And we both have souls. And we're both carrying around the vessels of what the Torah is on about. We are living a divine reality. By definition, God is here right now. Then you say, is this what the Torah is about? And in one respect, yes. You'll find out that Korach is going to be about this. Right? He's making Gerim like Naaman. The ger finds the prophet of Israel. What's the priesthood of Korach? He's out there making Gerim. So many Gerim, he says, we are the real priesthood and the ger is the real holy one. Moses says, are you nuts? You can't, because we lost the ger in Shelach, now you're going to bring him back out of proportion and push the Jew aside? That doesn't do it. Two wrongs don't make a right. He got punished. Rabbi Nachman states it very clearly. The ger is the repair of the altar. What does it mean? That the revelation of God needs those sparks of the ger to add substance to the story. It's like food without salt. Right? And salt, we say, is the eternal covenant. It doesn't go bad. That's the ger. He's your flavor. He's your salt. He's your existence. He's the song. He's the poetry. He's the flavor. He's the trope. He's the crowns. He's Rabbi Akiva. He's Moses looking at Rabbi Akiva in the class. He's Mara. He's the stories. He's your life explained. He's the divine providence you were not aware of. He is start looking at your life with a clear lens. The chief cornerstone that the builders rejected has become, or the stone the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. The ger is not everything. He's not everyone. It's not a contest. As the Malbim says, it's not a religious discussion. Right? This is not about how great the ger is. It's about his function. When the ger is restored to the Torah, it's like the last makimapatish, last hammer strike. We can say, now we have all the chromosomes in order, and we can look at the dots and make a nice picture. In fact, maybe it had nothing to do with the ger at all. We just need to see who's here, take a tally, now we can look at the picture. The fire that we all carry is this. Jews carrying the third temple and all that stuff in him. You need someone to talk about it with. But Jews don't, you can't, it's like playing chess by yourself. You can't. A Jew can't be like, hey, I got the third temple in me, and how about you? Oh, me too. And it doesn't work that way. It's not interesting. The non-Jew's got this ger and Mara and the Opan and him. And what's he going to do? Go to his friend and say, hey, you know what Mara was? Yeah. But when the Jew and the ger get together, Mara meets the third temple, boom! What a union! Even if it doesn't even go together, it just goes together. They nourish each other, and you get a biblical prophetic outcome called Torah revelation. You start to get that revelation, the guts to go further, to get the impurity out, make the Naaman ger, be the Elisha moment, get rid of Gehazi, get everything in order, understand the Torah, bring your life into its proper vindication. We are promised the Torah will be reclaimed in the end of days. Thank God in our time in history, we're watching that happen. The point is very simple. Let God's light enter our world. Let God's light enter the Torah. Our life is the Torah, but we don't know that yet. Right now it looks like this. It's going to look like that. We say the Torah is nachon. It's fit. But it's lo nachon. There's no gear here. We say that our life is the opposite. We say that it's lo nachon. It's all Jews and everyone else is just extras. No, it's not nachon. You need to realize the gear, make it nachon. Everyone's here. The temple's here, we're here, it's all here. Then you'll realize the Torah is not deficient either, it's there. Thus, when we make everything meet, all the ends meet, we'll realize life is awesome, always was. It was hard because God was creating by pulling the strings of Mazel to rectify over a 6,000 year period of time. It was God becoming one with his name as we're promised it will be. As it says, on that day, God is one, his name is one, and B'ezrat Hashem, we are in the end of God realizing that he is a God right now. As King David says, when the Gerim come in, God will remove the concealment and be a revealed God for the whole world, to which the Rambam says very clearly, the knowledge of God will fill the world when there are Jews and Gerim living side by side. Thank you very much. Have a great week.